brother, did you try that new restaurant down the street?
Yeah, I went there yesterday. Man, the food was off the chain. And the chicken was like, how they be saying it? Like, to die for.
Whoa.
To die for?
To die for, brother?
I'm saying, I mean, the chicken was good. You know what I'm saying?
Can't you just say the chicken was good? Does it have to be to die for? That sounds a little intimidating.
Did you wear skinny jeans while you were eating the chicken?
Nah, I'm saying, I was saying it was good, man.
Was it rainbow chicken?
Hold up, man. I said, well, the chicken was good.
Belt with a sparkly buckle on it while you were
Was the server doing a sissy bounce?
Man, I'm just saying, the chicken was good. Look, man, the chicken was good, no homo.
Nah, it's time has passed for no homo.
You're supposed to say it before, brother.
It's like a disclaimer.
I can't say, I just said no homo, though. There's no regulation on when you can say no homo. What are y'all, like a regulatory governing body over no homo or something?
Brothers and sisters, don't get caught up. Don't let the homosexual poltergeist pull you in. We are the final front in the war against white sex. Stand strong. This African service announcement has been brought to you by Warner Horizon Radio.
Warner Horizon. You gotta love it.
No homo.
Man, oh, here we go again, man. Two gay dudes kissing on the bus. That's what I'm talking about. Why you gotta be, man, they trying to turn everybody gay. You know what I'm saying, bro?
Nah, brother, I really don't know what you're talking about.
I'm saying, you see the bus. You see how they got the two dudes kissing on the joint. It's like commercials. Everywhere you go, everything gay. Youngers walking around with these little, the faggy fit jeans and everything. You know what I'm saying?
Well, brother, do you have hate in your heart?
What?
Yeah, that's not the Christianly thing to do. We should love our neighbors.
Man, I ain't loving no gay neighbors, Joe. It ain't say you gotta love your gay neighbors. It don't say love your neighbors. It don't say... I ain't talking about neighbors. I'm talking about faggy. So you saying you love faggy?
What I'm saying is, love is the most powerful force in the universe. And Jesus came to show us how we should love our brothers.
Man, you sounding real gay right now, talking about loving some brothers. Hold up, Joe. Look, look, if you want to tell me something, just let me know. I might be preaching to the choir, man. I'm saying, the faggy, talking about loving. You know what, man? Forget this, man. I'm going to walk. Peace. Brothers and sisters, sometimes your arms is not long enough to box with spooky in the sky. Spend your time where it's most useful. This is the African service announcement. Warner Horizon. We'll see you on the battlefield. Warner Horizon. You gotta love it. How you doing, brother? Can I get you one of these?
Sure, what's this about, brother?
We got a situation up in Delaware that's crazy right now, brother. Brothers are being lynched.
Oh, lynched? In 2012?
That's the same exact thing we said when we got the story.
So how did you hear about it?
That's a good question. You know, there was a professor who was at Delaware State University named Dr. Jahi Issa. And to make a long story short, he was doing some research and educating the students on how they're trying to destroy and demolish HBCUs.
Oh, I went to Bowie State.
I went to Hampton University, so you know how the students were responding to that. And in the midst of sharing this information with the students, he stumbled upon the fact that they were actually lynching brothers in Dover, Delaware.
Oh, how come I didn't hear about this on CNN?
You didn't hear about it on CNN because it's an election year. Do you know who the state's attorney is for the state of Delaware?
Who would that be?
That would be Bo Biden. Bo Biden is the Vice President Joe Biden's son. So as you can see, this is an extremely political situation.
Understood. So what do you have to do with this?
We represent an organization called Warner Horizon. And what we do is we educate black people to the threat of white supremacy and teach our people how we can prepare for black survival.
No doubt. Much needed. Definitely going to check this out. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, bro. Be safe out there, all right?
All right. Got it.
Where AIDS came from, God only knows. I think that I've been terrorized as a gay man into believing things about HIV and AIDS that are not provable.
It was just a crazy construct in the beginning. The original definition of AIDS doesn't have any resemblance to the current definition of AIDS.
That's not an epidemic. The number of cases reported went up epidemically, exponentially, because the number of tests that was done went up exponentially.
It follows a long-standing tradition of basically dumping our abandoned drugs onto the third world.
It's really society that's killing these people in general, and modern medicine is killing them in particular?
I believe I'm alive after 20 years of being HIV positive because I didn't take AZT or any anti-AIDS drug.
As long as AZT remains on the market, we continue to be betrayed.
I think there is a severe crisis in science as a whole, and in medical sciences in particular. They don't question anything.
The entire AIDS establishment is absolutely guilty of some hideous sin, and everybody's been fooled. That's hard to believe. See, I was like, no, it can't be.
I would say we have acquired information deficiency syndrome or a scandal.
We maintain that HIV is a big mistake, possibly one of the biggest mistakes in the 20th century.
How is this virus causing AIDS? How is it causing the depletion of immune cells when you can't even find it?
Nobody has ever seen HIV. We have seen diagrams of HIV. We've seen posters, all of those with drawings of HIV. But this is only theoretical, the way that it ought to be.
When two different parties look at the same data and come to different conclusions, it's no longer scientific.
Actually, AIDS is a religion of these people. They believe in this virus.
There is so much money being pumped into AIDS that people have no incentive whatsoever to see the truth.
Maintaining this industry, maintaining this whole idea that there's this epidemic pending and that HIV causes AIDS is a major public relations process in the United States.
If a hypothesis fails to produce results, that we have to reconsider that hypothesis.
Professor David Rasnick, one of the developers of the protease inhibitors commonly used for persons with AIDS, came from a scientific established background. He has done extensive research on the subject of AIDS and is now one of the most outspoken AIDS dissidents.
The best evidence against the HIV hypothesis is that there is no evidence for it. In the vast scientific medical literature, over 100,000 journals published so far on HIV/AIDS, we cannot find anywhere in this vast literature the evidence that HIV causes AIDS, that AIDS is a contagious disease, or that it even sexually transmitted. If this had been shown, that AIDS is caused by HIV, we should know who these benefactors of humanity are by name. These would be candidates for the Nobel Prize. But I challenge you, any American, journalist, scientist, to come up with the names of these individuals who we should revere and should honor with awards and things. And I think you will find that you won't be able to come up with it. HIV is so clever that it knows to cause Kaposi sarcoma in gay men. 98% of all Kaposi sarcoma is in gay men. HIV knows to cause tuberculosis and wasting in IV drug users, and it knows to cause diarrhea and candidiasis or thrush in hemophiliacs.
My ancestors woke me up this morning. They said, son, you do know what time it is, don't you? I said, what time is that? They said it's wartime. So welcome to the forefront, brothers and sisters. We have an outstanding program for you tonight, this evening. This is one that you need to get your papers, your pads, your pens out. This is going to be very serious. As a matter of fact, this is one of the most serious, probably hard to believe dialogues, hard to consider and to process realities that we've seen in the 20th century. And what we're going to do tonight, we're not going to go into the deep conspiracy. We're going to go into the provable facts. And we're going to discuss tonight the AIDS epidemic, so-called, the history of AIDS, and what we're going to do, this is how I'm going to do it. We're going to listen to a lot of video because instead of me telling you, I'd rather you hear it from experts so you can hear it and put the pieces together. And what I want you to do, brothers and sisters, after you've listened to everything, all the pieces of it, what I want you to do is I'm going to ask everybody that comes on to give me a synopsis. Remember, every new piece of information or different piece of information or extra piece of information or even perspective on information that we have, every piece that we get, we have to put into the puzzle. Tonight, what we want to understand and see is what is the relevance of our discussion tonight as it relates to AIDS. Not, oh, did they create AIDS? Not have we been lied to about AIDS. But tonight we're doing something very, 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 very different. Tonight, there's a very obvious, once it processes in your mind, a very obvious and glaring, evident reality of what this whole AIDS thing is about. But before we can really talk about what the AIDS thing is about, we have to understand scientifically what the advanced scientific community, the honest scientific community, has said about AIDS. And then we have to look at what we see in the world today as it relates to the objectives for black survival. And we have to be able to put it connected and put it into a full sphere of comprehension to have a good, solid, thorough understanding of what's going on. So listen to what I'm telling you, brothers and sisters. Tonight we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to go probably about an hour. I'm going to play a lot of videos. And I'm going to link things in a kind of a time-oriented sense. And I'm going to play them, and I'm going to tell you what I'm about to play, and then I'm going to play these clips and listen to them. Listen to what's being said. I'll give a little bit of analysis, but then instead of me giving the meat of what the conclusion is, what the real meaning of all that we've heard is, I'm going to come to our advanced audience. Brother Body Shot says that the War on the Horizon audience is the most sophisticated audience in the world. That's what he said. The most sophisticated radio listening audience in the world. And tonight we're going to see that. Because we all, even myself, had hypotheses and understandings about AIDS. But I think that not that we're going to have 100% perfect, clear picture tonight. But I think that when we finish tonight, we're going to all be on a much more similar page in terms of our comprehension of the real meaning behind what's going on with this so-called AIDS virus and what it means to African people and why it is what it is. So with that said, you heard the introduction. You had many of the doctors, for those who tuning in late and didn't hear it, many of the doctors are saying that they've never found and isolated the HIV virus. They never found it. Others have said that HIV is not what they told it is. It is. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to play a very brief clip, and then I'm going to go to another clip. The clip I'm going to play for you now is very short. It is one of the earliest stories that came out when, quote-unquote, AIDS first hit the scene. But I want you to listen because it was not called AIDS when it first came about. But I want you to hear it for yourself. So listen to this clip so you can hear this is when it was first coming out, and it first came on the scene in the 1980s.
In this society, being homosexual has always meant political and social strife. But now the gay community has to face up to another kind of problem. That as a group, they seem to be the target for a number of infectious diseases like herpes, hepatitis B, and a deadly new form of pneumonia. Doctors have even coined a new word for these conditions, GRIDs, gay-related infectious diseases. Of all these diseases, the one that's generated the most concern and even fear in the gay community is called Kaposi sarcoma. Kaposi sarcoma used to be known as simply a relatively rare form of cancer, but in the last few months, it's become an epidemic. In just 4 years, there have been 500 cases of this almost unheard-of form of viral cancer. Half of those victims have died, making Kaposi's a greater killer than Legionnaire's disease and toxic shock syndrome put together. And in 75% of the cases, the victims were gay men. Dr. Paul Volber.
So, I played that clip for one reason. Gay-related infectious diseases. The original name for this was gay-related infectious diseases. Now keep that in mind as we go forward, because that is not anything that we can forget, because it's critical. It will become critical to our understanding of what we call today acquired immune deficiency syndrome. But originally it was called gay-related infectious diseases. Now, let's go and listen to a clip now, because we want to hear from the experts who are questioning whether or not this thing that they call HIV even existed.
From the mid-70s until 1984, when the so-called official cause of AIDS was found, it was shown that many individuals within the gay community were suffering from a unique form of gay men's disease. The original theory was that AIDS was caused by a lifestyle.
It was in June 81 when the first publication came out, published by the Centers of Disease Control, saying 5 men had PCP and 2 of them died, even being treated with Septrim, this last or the strongest antibioticum available.
AIDS was first identified among gay men in 1981 who practiced certain lifestyle behaviors. They, according to the New York Times, on July 3rd, 1981, tended to have upwards of 2,000 sexual contacts a year and used a lot of aphrodisiacal drugs, including poppers, amyl nitrite, a very dangerous substance that gay men had been inhaling in epidemic proportions since the early 1970s. And with regard to the sexual activity, you don't need to be moralistic to say that, gosh, you have 2,000 sex partners a year, you develop a laundry list of infectious diseases, venereal diseases, that can do a lot of damage over the long term to your immune system. Doctors and scientists looking at this phenomenon early on said, gosh, they do a lot of drugs, they have a laundry list of venereal diseases. The combination of these factors might well be enough to knock their immune systems for a real loop.
They took tons of antibiotics to treat the perpetual infections they would get by having a lot of different sex partners. And between the drugs and the infections and the antibiotics and the treatments, plus just partying all the time and being very run down, it's really a wonder that they didn't get sick sooner.
Okay. So now we hear, brothers and sisters, that originally the philosophy was, or the opinion was, that the reason that this new disease came out, and the reason why they called it gay-related infectious diseases, is because the theory was that the so-called homosexual lifestyle, which we call death style, that this type of misbehavior, if an individual is participating in constant drug use, which was a major part of the homosexual death style, constant poppers, drugs that have an intentional impact on the body, constant sexual partners, up to 2,000 per year. And we're going to just do a quick little piece of mathematics so we can get an idea of what that means. If we have somebody sleeping with 2,000 partners in a year, which they did, they talked to a lot of these homos, and these were what they were telling them, counting their partners for the year. And you divide that by 365 days, assuming it's not a leap year, that's 5 individuals a day. I heard one interview with a European talking about one night he had sex with like 50 people. Just in they just all just having sex, and they just all running through them, 50 of them. So just to give you an idea, that's 5 individuals a day. You're sleeping with 5 different individuals per day. And that doesn't mean you only sleep with somebody one time. So they're just going around just raw dog, just doing it up sexually. So originally, so that does a few things. One, you partying day and night. You're not letting your body rest. That's unhealthy. People know you can only go so long without sleeping, you will die, actually. I don't know if a lot of people know that. The body needs water, it needs air, and it needs sleep. Of course, it needs food too, but, very basic, essential thing. You have to have rest or the body will die. You have to have water or the body will die. You have to have oxygen or the body will die. So they're partying all the time, never resting. They have males coming in and out of their anuses, which is an exit, not an entrance point for a man naturally, which is creating tremendous stress on a part of the body that's not supposed to be having that kind of stress. And then, of course, like the individual said, because you got 2,000 individuals coming through you in a year, you're passing all kinds of diseases on. The combination of drug use, not resting, and this sick, degenerate death style of passing diseases on to each other at large numbers circulating through the body all came together to produce what they called GRID. So now we're going to go, so we got that part. So we understand it was originally called GRID, and what GRID was, it wasn't even something necessarily sexually transmitted. It was the mix of use of drugs, no rest for the body, which means stress. When you don't rest, it causes stress to the body. The body needs relaxation, and it needs to build itself and regenerate itself. So it must not be constantly stressed, or else the body will eventually fold under constant stress. So you have the combination of drug use, stress, and sexually transmitted diseases, sexual, homosexual, anal, oral kind of wild sexual multiple partner stuff. So you have the passing of diseases, the stress on the body from no rest, and drug use as a combination of a death style, a way a person is living or killing themselves, a lifestyle, death style. That is what it was originally called. Now, we're about to listen to a clip here now that talks about how the Centers for Disease Control, they needed a plague. And they'll tell you why they needed a plague and how this one was created. So let's go into this clip.
If it's just caused by needles, or it's just caused by homosexual activities, you're not going to really get a long, sustained public outcry against it, and nobody's going to want to spend $6 billion a year. They're going to say, well, we really didn't like those people anyhow. Great. I can't think of a better solution to the homosexual problem than a disease that'll kill them all. I mean, there would be congressmen that would talk about that quietly, not on television. So the CDC had to say, we can't say that. We got to say it's got to be heterosexually transmitted. There's no proof that it's transmitted at all at that point. So why not just say, well, it's heterosexually transmitted too? It must be in semen. And when they looked for it in semen, they didn't find it. They had no evidence that it was sexually transmitted or any other way transmitted. They just said it because that made it a plague, and the CDC needed one. The CDC hadn't had a good plague since polio. Their funding was probably going to be cut back if they didn't come up with one. The guy that was the head of the CDC, in fact, wrote memos that have been obtained, where he describes this as hot stuff. Those guys have got an agenda, which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way.
Now, I want you to listen. So, and I know that you can hear for yourself, but I want to walk through it slowly because I want people to have a time for this to really register in your mind what's happening. So you have a situation where you have this disease, sarcoma, that is attacking the immune system of so-called homosexuals who are involved in this crazy death style of constant sexuality, drug use, and constant partying, and never letting their bodies have a chance to rest. And at the same time, the CDC is looking for a disease because they have not found a cure for cancer. And because they haven't found a cure for cancer, NIH was about to pull back the funding for researching for these diseases, which means thousands of people would have lost their jobs. And we're talking about hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars going to be redirected away from studying these diseases because they haven't found any successful cure for cancer. So why continue to pour money in it? So they're looking for something to justify them continuing to get funding. And they find that the so-called homosexual, the white sex community, is getting a disease or is dying from a combination of factors due to their death style and their constant behavioral patterns. And so they go, we need a disease that we can say is going to kill people. Here we got one that's with the homosexuals, but they had a problem. What was the problem? The problem was Congress is not going to give money for something that'll kill homosexuals. So they said, well, wait a minute. The homosexuals were like, if we go to Congress and tell them it's killing homosexuals, they'll be like, good. So the homosexuals community said, well, this is what we can do. Why don't we say it's a disease that can kill heterosexuals? And the homosexual community was perfectly in line with the research community, because the research community, not caring necessarily about homosexuals per se, but caring about the money that they would get from Congress, said, you know what, that would make a good idea. And then we could talk about this horrible disease that can kill everybody, and we can continue to get money that we would have lost for doing cancer for this new thing called GRID. But if we call it GRID, gay-related infectious diseases, they're not going to give us money. And so that's when we go to our next part, how they create the AIDS myth. Let's go forward.
There were people who felt that a single virus theory would be useful in helping to raise public awareness about the disease. It would help them get the research they thought was necessary and public funding for its treatment by scaring people into believing that while the disease was affecting gay men now, it was eventually going to spread throughout the heterosexual population. This political definition of the disease has proven to be inaccurate and inconsistent with its real medical nature.
The CDC catches wind of this phenomenon happening among gay men, and they believe that it's a virus that's to blame. Now, of course, there's no historical precedent for believing that a single virus could devastate a normal immune system, but the individuals at the CDC investigating this situation on the task force regarding Kaposi sarcoma and opportunistic infections were all infectious disease specialists. They're used to blaming viruses for diseases, and that was their leading theory from the get-go. And in order to validate this theory that a virus was to blame for these immunodeficiencies among gay men, they actively sought out other cases of unexplained immunodeficiency throughout the U.S. in other populations. And lo and behold, they found unexplained diseases of immunodeficiency among IV drug users. I'm sorry, you've got a similar situation, exposure to innumerable microbes, typically through unhygienic needle use, and heavy-duty drug use among this population of IV drug users. Is it so surprising that they would have immune problems? I mean, junkies are famous for dying of opportunistic infections, including pneumonias. Soon enough, they identified immunodeficiency diseases among hemophiliacs, and they published this finding, much to the astoundment of scientists, doctors, and the general public. It seemed that the virus causing the immunodeficiencies among gay men that had spread through needle use to IV drug users had spread through factor VIII to hemophiliacs. Factor VIII was a new blood product used among hemophiliacs in order to restore their blood clotting capability. The difficulty with factor VIII was that due to purification technology in the 1970s, factor VIII was a terribly impure blood product. In fact, it was 99 to 99.9% impure, meaning that it was loaded with other viruses and foreign proteins from as many as 10,000 donors per dose of factor VIII, which meant that over the course of a year, a regular user of factor VIII might be exposed to the foreign viruses and proteins of upwards of 2 million different blood donors. Now that in itself can be terribly immune suppressive. But the CDC preferred to believe that the immune problems among hemophiliacs was also caused by a virus. And the CDC went on to identify immune problems among babies, all of whom in the early years were born to drug-addicted mothers, and identify immune problems among transfusion victims. And you've got transfusion victims who are getting blood transfusions which have been shown to be immunosuppressive. As a matter of fact, in the 1970s, medical scientists had begun infusing organ receivers with donated blood before receiving their new organs, because that donated blood was shown to suppress their immune system and hence prevent organ rejection. So you've got several populations in which there are perfectly plausible alternative explanations for immune suppression and related diseases.
Now, let's break down what we just heard. Originally, AIDS, according to the whites, is a disease that is created, comes from white Europeans, primarily white European homosexuals, who are constantly participating in wild parties, doing dope and drugs, and having constant sex with one another to the tune of 2,000 partners in any given year. They're doing drugs, they're having anal, oral sex, passing diseases to one another, and they're not resting their bodies because they're partying day in and day out. That's what's causing AIDS. Then they decide this is something that they want to get funding for. And the homos want to get funding because instead of stopping their homo behavior, they decide, I don't want to stop being a homo. I just want to be able to do it and not die. The CDC and those that are funding this type of research want to do it because they want money invested in it to be able to continue to get the money for it, so they need an epidemic. So first, the disease is from gays based on their behavior. It's a behavioral disease of a combination of factors. Then all of a sudden, when people are dying because of blood transfusions and because of dirty needles and all kinds of infections that they're getting from these kinds of things, from the blood, there's a whole different set of factors that are already killing people. The people die from blood transfusions that's happened for years. This is a normal standard thing that happens. But now they say, well, if it's going to be an epidemic, we can't just wait for the gays who are dying from the sarcoma stuff to go down because there's not enough of them. So in order to make it an epidemic, we have to find another population of people to classify as having AIDS. So now anybody that gets a blood transfusion and the blood does not settle right with their body and causes a dysfunction or malfunction in their body, whether it be through IV drug use or transfusion, any transfusion of blood transferring from one person's body to another and it has a negative effect on the body, now all of a sudden that's also classified as AIDS. So now we have one that's supposedly sexually transmitted, but another one that's not sexually transmitted is transmitted through blood use, through blood exchange. So on the one hand, it's supposed to be in the blood through sexuality and the lifestyle or the death style of homosexual behavior. But then, on the other hand, a whole set of different circumstances when blood is transferred from from one person to another, now also that death is also classified as AIDS. So now they're creating a set of circumstances to create multiple ways for there to be this thing called AIDS. It's no longer GRID, gay-related immune deficiency, or gay-related infectious diseases. It's AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, meaning, according to them, you get this thing called HIV, and it grows into what they call AIDS, and all AIDS is the HIV attacks your system and starts killing your immune system, and then you don't die of anything called AIDS because they have not classified AIDS as that type of disease. You die because your immune system has been torn down. And now you die from pneumonia, you die from cancer, you die from any kind of things that otherwise would not necessarily kill a person right away. So once your immunity is down. So even though historically, the way that people die generally, unless it's a gunshot wound or something of that nature, is that their immune system, because of whatever circumstances, is bad and fails them at some given point, and they die from some kind of, way, something that kills them. That is a normal process of how people can die on the planet. But now that the process, anything that has to do with blood being transferred and anything that has to do with the homosexual death style, they are now classifying as AIDS. Now we're going to move forward because it gets really, 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 really important. I hope people are following this. Now we're going to listen to them as they start talking, because if you listen to it very carefully in the beginning, even with GRID and even with the blood transfusion, one of the consistencies in it is drug use. Drug use being a key component of what is actually killing people. So let's listen to this.
What if you were to take completely healthy individuals who had no risk factors for depressing their immune system, and every day, 4 times a day, you give them one of the most toxic chemotherapy drugs ever created, AZT? What would you imagine would be the state of their immune system and overall health within 2 years? And yet that's exactly what has been done with many people who have tested positive for the HIV antibody.
The doctor says, okay, yes, we have here sick people and we treat them. We try to treat them, but we only treat them because we hear from them they have a deadly virus, not because they are sick. Most of them are completely healthy. They are just afraid.
We watch people come in. They'll be taking the medications and they're looking gaunt. Their skin's turning funny colors. They're real anemic. They're weak. Sometimes coming in with canes. They do a little research on their own. We don't tell them what to do. We're about self-empowerment, self-responsibility, taking charge of your own life and health. They begin doing that. They get off the medications. Color starts coming back. They start putting on the weight. They start feeling better. But there's a lapse. They get afraid again. They start taking medications. We watch them start shrinking up again. They start looking gaunt. They start getting pale again. They start getting weak. Then they go, oh, maybe I should be doing this. They get off. They start coming back again. You actually watch this, and it's coordinated with taking these medications. It's just unmistakable. One of the biggest things that's missing in science today is common sense.
Who really benefits from the billions of...
So, I'm sorry, brothers and sisters, I stopped that a little short now. So now we see a very, very insidious thing that is occurring. Now we see, from the clip we just listened to, they said now that they have created the AIDS concept, the HIV causes AIDS concept, what happens is a person will come in feeling like they are perfectly fine. The doctor will say, oh my goodness, you came back HIV positive. Now, this is a person who feels 100% normal. And so what they do is they take a drug. Now, let me be very clear. AZT, which is one of the early drugs that was used to treat HIV and AIDS. AZT is essentially no different than chemotherapy. In fact, it is chemotherapy in a pill form, meaning, chemotherapy is for people with cancer. And what chemotherapy does is basically you kill the people's cells. And the object of killing the cells with a cancer patient is that you kill enough cells that you're hoping you kill the bad cells and that they don't come back. So you're killing the person, but hopefully you kill the bad cells before the person dies. That's the basic objective of chemotherapy. So you have a perfectly healthy person comes in. They told that they have a disease. They get depressed and can't believe it, that they have this disease and they're about to die. And then you put them on chemotherapy, which does what? Kills their cells and kills the person. Now, they can only live through the AZT if there's actually a disease they have or cells that are bad in their system that the AZT is killing. If the person don't have no disease and does not have a real ailment, then essentially, for no good reason, they're taking a drug that is killing their immune system and killing their cells and killing them. So again, let's remember this constant theme. What is it? When it was gay-related infectious diseases, it was what? Drugs, not resting the body, and this sexual passing of diseases on. Now we see with people when they transfer in blood, drugs, because many times those drug things are people that are shooting up needles or dirty needles, drugs again. And now we see individuals who are going in, and like this doctor said, they would work with people who believe they were HIV positive. They would talk to them and say, look, this thing is not proven. They would get off the medication. They would get healthy. Then they would get scared by the doctors. Oh, if you stop taking this, I'm telling you, no telling what day you might die. Then they get back on the drugs, and then the drugs end up killing them. And for the population of individuals that were doing AZT, the drug use is what was killing their immunity and their body and murdered them. So this idea of constantly getting individuals to use drugs, flu shot, hint, hint, listen, is part of, and remember, we're not saying that there's no diseases that kill the immune system. What we're saying is, if you're listening to what's really happening, the central theme, one of the central themes is the drug usage. Now, in that situation, we heard something else. It wasn't just drug usage. It was not only drug usage, But one has to believe one is sick in order to do some drugs. So in other words, people will go in not knowing they have anything and they're living fine. And if nobody told them anything, they will live fine for the rest of their life, which means they obviously don't have a disease that's going to kill them. However, when they go in and take the test and find out that they're sick, they become so demoralized. And come on, brother, says everybody out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. Whenever you've gone to get your AIDS test, you, me, and Chill Rob G, we all know how it is. You are sweating bullets. You like, God, man, don't tell me this thing come back because if it does, I'm going to die. And you just ran a marathon and a mile. You've been on your bike. You've done everything. But you desperately thinking that you had AIDS. And I'm deviating a little bit, but this is an honest story. I'm going to tell a story. When I was in high school, I had just become sexually active. And, of course, I didn't have AIDS, but I had, and I didn't know it at the time, I had allergies. But, allergies have your nose dripping and sneezing all the time. But I didn't know because I had never had allergies. Well, I had allergies, but they weren't like that when I was young. They, I had a breakout on my face, but I never had my nose dripping and all this stuff. So they had changed form. I didn't know that, and I was in high school, and this was going on for months, man. I was just sniffing all day, every day. I said, dang, I got AIDS. And I didn't want to go to the doctor because I thought I had AIDS. I'm almost in there crying with the white female nurse telling her I got AIDS. And she's like, you don't have AIDS. You're not part of the community that would be likely to have that. I said, yeah, but I'm sniffing and all this. And I came to D.C. and I went to the doctor and I think I got AIDS. Why? Because I'm sniffing and sneezing. And the doctor took me in there and they said, oh, you just have allergies. And they gave me some stuff called, what was that stuff they give you for allergies? God, I forget the name of that stuff. And that pretty much wiped it out. And I was like, man. So when people say that the fear of having AIDS can kill you, I can tell you the kind of depression I was going through was serious because I had allergies. But because the AIDS epidemic was out there and everybody's going to die of AIDS, I just knew I had the bug. So that's important to know. But it's also important to know the next part that we're going to play because this is serious. Most of us think that the Center of Disease Control at NIH are medical institutions. And a medical institution should be run by who? A doctor, right? A top doctor. Whoever runs those institutions should be a doctor. Let's see if that's the case.
Who really benefits from the billions upon billions of dollars spent each year on AIDS research?
Those that control and maintain the HIV hypothesis of AIDS are two basic institutions, the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, and the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. Both of these institutions will probably come as a surprise to the public to learn that they are military organizations. It was certainly a surprise to me to learn this. The leaders of the National Institutes of Health and the CDC have uniforms. They have military ranks. And as everybody who's ever been in the military knows, there's an information flow from top to bottom. Military structures are incompatible with free and open discourse and debate, which is supposed to be what science is about. When you have these military structures in the CDC and the National Institutes of Health, you can control the debate. You can control the information flow. Not only that, since the National Institutes of Health are the primary source of funding for all academic, medical, scientific research, they can control who gets funding to do what research. And in that fashion, they can control what gets published and, more importantly, what you exclude.
All right. So now we understand that the medical care of the people of this nation is in the hands not of medical doctors who are trained for that, but rather in the hands of the military. Why is that relevant to us? Well, because, again, remember, brothers and sisters, it hasn't been that long that all of a sudden the flu is such a dangerous thing that people got to go out and get a doggone flu shot. And y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. People now going, I got to get my flu shot. Well, if you knew that the flu shot was not being determined that it should be administered by doctors, but rather by military personnel who head up the National Institute of quote-unquote health and the Center for Disease Control, which are two military agencies operating under the guise of medicine, would you still take those flu shots? All right, now I want to take this because we're about to go another place, and our timing is looking good. At 8 o'clock hour, I'm going to ask you to come in. I'm going to ask you to put all this stuff together because it's a glaring reality within the context of all the things we're talking about on a regular basis. This is like a centerpiece, though. It slam dunks it, home run. I want somebody out there to put the pieces together to make it make sense in the context of what we're fighting, what real time on the ground here in this war for our survival as African people. Now, what I'm about to do is go to a different place. We talked about this in the context of America, that it started out, again, GRID, gay-related infectious diseases. Homosexuals, white sex offenders, 2,000 partners a year, passing sexually transmitted diseases with each other, doing a lot of drugs, and partying all day, all night long, not allowing their body to rest. This combination of factors leads to what? A destruction of their immunity. They get disease and they die. So that's what it was originally. And once the science community sees that and the homosexual community sees that, they have something in common. The homosexual community wants to be able to continue to be homos, but they want to continue to misbehave in the way they do, but they don't want to die. So they want a cure for it. The Center for Disease Control and the researchers in the science world need an epidemic because they want to continue their funding, and Congress is not going to continue to fund them if if they don't find a disease that's an epidemic. And they would go right out and say gay-related infectious diseases, but if they call it that, Congress will not fund it. So both the science community and the homosexuals agree the only way Congress is going to fund it is if they think it's a heterosexual disease that will harm heterosexuals. So they change the argument and say this is the disease that it may have started with homosexuals, but this is the disease that can kill heterosexuals, and it's going to be a massive disease. And so according to them, it is two things. One, it's a sexually transmitted disease, which has never been proven, but that is the new construct. That is the new construct so that it can scare people to believing that they can get AIDS through heterosexual contact, which there are many diseases that one can get. So I'm not telling people not to have protected sex, but I am saying that obviously, as we can see it, it's not happening the way they say it. But also, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. You can get the disease through sexual contact or through blood transfusion. So this is a real strange disease because it's not just through sex. It's through sex or if you change the blood. Usually it's one or the other. So they have a multitude of ways that you can get this HIV thing. But HIV does not tend to kill anybody. Only an individual who has been diagnosed as HIV and now is taking drugs, which are chemotherapy drugs, which kill their cells, end up getting killed and die. Other people may live with quote-unquote HIV forever, or who knows, God knows how long, and never have any signs of any sickness until they get a diagnosis that they're sick, and then all of a sudden, the depression and the drug use from that ends up killing these people. So that's within the context of the United States of America. Then a very interesting thing happens, because now we know that this is a military design, and we see that design. All of a sudden we hear, no, AIDS does not come from the homosexuals. It's no longer GRID. It came from a green monkey in Africa. Well, why a green monkey in Africa? What is the relationship to Africa? Well, very simply, brothers and sisters, the relationship to Africa is simple. If they want to make this disease or this set of circumstances, if you even want to call it a disease, if they want to create this epidemic and say that it can be heterosexual, transmitted, and make it a heterosexual disease, why not take it abroad? But there's a deeper reason. If they have convinced people in America that they have a disease that they don't have, and then they can get them to take a drug that will kill them and pay for that drug, what can they do with people internationally who don't have information to go on, who can be made to believe that they have a disease, whose nations can buy this drugs, and then they can kill the people and make money at the same time? So let's go listen to this, brothers and sisters.
Control who gets funding to do what research, and in that fashion they can control what gets published, and more importantly, what you exclude.
There is a paradox. In America, we're told that it's the fast-track gay and the intravenous drug user most susceptible to developing AIDS. In Africa, we're told that it is the heterosexual that is most susceptible to developing AIDS. Why the contradiction? Well, we haven't looked carefully at the facts. We've been told numbers ranging from 5 million to 25 million Africans have HIV and that there's going to be an enormous amount of death. But when you actually go to Africa and you interview the physicians working there, you find that these are presumptive diagnoses.
One of the things that is important to emphasize from the outset is that the definition of an AIDS case on the African continent differs decisively from what constitutes an AIDS case, say, in North America or Western Europe. A definition was arrived at as a result of a World Health Organization sponsored conference in October of 1985. What resulted was what's known as the Bangui definition. The Bangui definition of an AIDS case in Africa is based on 4 clinical symptoms. The clinical symptoms are high fever, a persistent cough, loose stools for 30 days, and a 10% loss of body weight over a 2-month period. By that definition, a Western researcher like myself has had AIDS. But having gotten on a plane and flown back to California, I'm not considered, of course, an AIDS case. So I think it's important to keep that in mind whenever one looks at the data, the epidemiological data, about what exactly we're counting when it comes to AIDS in Africa.
Now, I think that was kind of self-explanatory, but I will, for the record, say it. In America, there's one type of standard. In Africa, a person who has access to bad water and who is not healthy, if they get malaria, which is going to make you lose weight, it's going to make you have diarrhea and all these symptoms, you're not classified with malaria and given treatment. In Africa, you're classified with AIDS, which means black people in all of the poor regions of Africa, based on the diagnosis used for African continent, which is not one used in America. And if it's the same disease, how can you diagnose it one way in one place and totally differently in a different place? That doesn't make any sense unless you have an agenda. So keep that in mind. And now we're going to talk real briefly. We only got 2 more clips. This clip here talks about, well, why would the African nations do this? What is the incentive for an African nation to let somebody just come in and say that somebody has AIDS in their country? Because it seems as though if people have malaria and that's all they have, and I'm saying they have malaria and they could be saved, why wouldn't they just say, no, you can't come in here and say one of our people has malaria, has AIDS, it's just malaria, or it's just malnutrition. All you need to do is help us get potable water and some good nutrition and grow some food here, and everything will be fine. Why don't they do that? What is the incentive to the African countries? Let's listen.
Once the notion got started that stopping AIDS in Africa, which was assumed to be a heterosexually transmitted set of diseases, it could be prevented or stopped by safe sex, then I think early on in the going, there was a considerable interest on the part of missionary and church-related aid groups who argued very strongly that monogamy and abstinence and safe sex were ways, in fact, to prevent this particular kind of disease. To that extent, the WHO and the UN has found it very expedient and very practical along political and ideological lines to argue that the causes of these diseases in Africa
and the cure for those diseases lies in the hands of the people themselves, rather than looking at the harder nut, the tougher nut to crack, which would be the historical and the institutional forces that make it such in Africa that many people do not have an adequate diet, few people have adequate sanitation throughout their lives, and the vast majority of people in Africa are subject to a wide range of diseases, all of which predated that of AIDS. So I think that's been a major motivating factor. You have to also understand that there's a reason on the African side to buy into this particular equation. With the end of the Cold War, Africa has found itself unable to play the superpower game, playing the United States or the Western powers off of the Soviet bloc. And so many ministries of health and many governments in general accepted that little dogma, or not get the kind of aid and the kind of assistance that the U.S. government, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and so forth, felt very strongly that this is what these African governments needed.
Okay. So essentially, what he said, in this cracker kind of way is, what's really going on is racist crackers are enslaving and oppressing the African continent, and that's what's really killing people. The fact that the people don't have the benefit of their own resources. He said, but it's much easier to tell black people, and then dig this now. In America, the fags are fags, and they're encouraged to remain fags, and nobody says for the fag to be celibate, because a fag can't be celibate. That's what makes him a fag. But in Africa, the solution to AIDS is the black people to stop having sex or stop being able to procreate. So we're in a condom. No mention of the drug use, no mention of the IV use, because they're not using IVs and intravenous drug users and all that stuff in Africa. That's not what's killing our people. So how is it that if people are dying of AIDS in Africa and it's a heterosexual disease, but it's a homosexual disease, is gay-related infectious diseases in America, and black people in Africa are not into homosexuality, how can they be and they're not doing intravenous drug use, how then can black people in Africa be getting this AIDS? How is it just completely contrary to what it is in America? AIDS in Africa is when a man and a woman have sex with each other. Well, what can happen when a man and a woman have sex with each other? And why would the whites want to encourage black people to believe that the way to stop a disease that they have not proven that exists in Africa is for black people to stop having sex with each other? And why is it that they then pay the African country? So you can't get any money for anything in Africa except AIDS. But it's not money to study AIDS and cure it. It's not money to treat it. It's only money to take drugs that are poisonous drugs, that are chemotherapy drugs that kill cells and kill people. So that's the only thing you can get money for, is to get drugs to kill people. So you get money so in other words, if you're an African doctor in Africa, if you say somebody is dying from malnutrition, you don't get $1. But if you say they're dying from AIDS, they'll give you money. But they don't give you money to fix the person or help the person, because you can't give them a healthy diet and buy food and potable water for them and get them healthy. The only thing you can do is give them a drug that's going to kill them. I'm going to play this last part, and this part speaks for itself, to really show exactly what's going on. I think this makes it as clear, what they say, as clear as mud, what's really going on the African continent as it relates to AIDS. And then we're going to go to our phone lines and we're going to talk about it. And tonight, you are going to put the pieces together, brothers and sisters. I want you to come in. You tell me. I'm not going to tell you tonight what the relevance of this is to what we deal with every day. But you got to string these pieces together and realize what is going on.
They're taking the show to the third world, and they're not only giving AZT to what will probably be millions of women in the third world, whether they're HIV positive or not, but they're also insisting that they stop breastfeeding and start formula feeding, supposedly in an effort to prevent transmission of HIV, which of course has never been isolated from breast.
And let me just say this, I'm going to back it up again and start it over, just so you can see, in the pictures that they're showing, everyone that they're showing is black women. Haiti, and on the African continent and in the Caribbean. So I just wanted to make that point, and I'm going to play this clip again, brothers and sisters.
They're taking the show to the third world, and they're not only giving AZT to what will probably be millions of women in the third world, whether they're HIV positive or not, but they're also insisting that they stop breastfeeding and start formula feeding, supposedly in an effort to prevent transmission of HIV, which of course has never been isolated from breast milk. Only antibodies, and even that only 25% or something, pretty much like the semen data. But they're launching here what is bound to be a real disaster, a real serious loss of human life.
Mother's milk, which pediatricians around the world will tell you is the healthiest food that a newborn can have because of the immunological properties in mother's milk, that women should in fact cease breastfeeding their young. Now, this to me seems something more than just a crime. This is absolutely diabolical and evil, and I am at least encouraged that there's been some dissension and some skepticism for a change within the bowels of the WHO. An organization that's argued very strongly for breastfeeding is now coming to grips with maybe one of the big contradictions in the whole HIV/AIDS a construct.
I can't imagine that it'll work out any other way than that you're going to just see tens, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe even more babies dying. And they'll probably say they died of AIDS no matter what happens. So nobody will even be held accountable this time. Oh, here's the one thing they're doing. So they can demonstrate that this has nothing to do with any particular formula company making money off of this situation. The WHO or UNAIDS or whoever it is insisting that the formula gets shipped in bottles without labels.
So, and you heard what the Europeans said, and we know this. The way to build immunity in a child, the best way to build a child with a strong immune system is for that child to breastfeed. And what the Europeans are doing in Africa and Haiti and around the world is telling black women, you should not breastfeed. Now, let me do it one more time, go all the way from the beginning and come through the end, and then I want you to come in here and do the analysis and bring this thing home for me, brothers and sisters. GRID, gay-related infectious diseases, which later also became gay-related immune deficiency. But GRID, gay-related infectious diseases, was found that the whites in the so-called homosexual community were so licentious in their sexuality that they were having up to 2,000 partners in a year, passing diseases on to each other, constantly doing drugs. That was a stream and all. They were constantly doing drugs. And they were not resting and giving their body a chance to recover and rejuvenate itself. And that set of circumstances began to tear their immune system down. And so scientists had called that reality GRID, gay-related infectious diseases, because they were getting diseases that were killing them based on their immunity being drawn down by their death style. Then the CDC hears about it, and they're looking for money from Congress because they feel like they're about to lose their money for cancer research because they haven't really found any cures for any diseases in this research, so they need a new epidemic so that they'll be able to continue to get money. And so they said, we can jump on this GRID. However, if we go to Congress saying it's for gays, Congress say, well, good, let them die. So they had to find a way to change it and say that it's not a disease related to being gay, that it's a disease anybody can get. So they changed the name in order to get the money and in order for the homos to actually try to find a way to cure them. Instead of curing them by their behavior, they want to get a drug that can actually save them when they go out here and participate in this madness. And so they go to Congress and they say, hey, this is a heterosexual disease and it can kill millions of people, and you can get it through blood transfusions, you can get it through sexual intercourse, even though they never proved that this agent called HIV even exists. but they make the claim that this is what happens, and then your immune system dies, and then they classify people who die from multiple different types of diseases as having AIDS, diseases that people already would die from normally. Then, and because we know that the disease was largely homosexual, primarily homosexual in America, then all of a sudden it comes out, oh no, AIDS came from a green monkey in Africa. So now they're going to the African continent, and now it's no longer a homosexual disease because our people aren't involved in homosexuality in Africa. It's now a heterosexual disease that should be treated by black women. Stop breastfeeding their children, which is the best way to create strong immunity in a child. And they should buy cracker formula for their babies instead of breastfeeding them. And that these brothers and sisters on the continent should use condoms and abstain of some sex and not have sex with one another, men with women, because if they stop having sex with men and with women, then they won't get the AIDS virus. And quote-unquote millions of people are being diagnosed in Africa with AIDS, and all you have to do to have AIDS in Africa, a doctor can look at you when you walk in many regions of Africa. Look at you, you're coughing, and they can say you have AIDS. They actually don't even have to do a test, and the test that they do, part of the test is when they interview you and ask you, have you had multiple sexual partners? If you say yes, then they can say that logically can lead them to say that you have AIDS. If you say no and you give them a certain answer, that will make it less likely that you have AIDS. So part of the diagnosis of AIDS is not just the test, because the test is not standardized anywhere in the world. They're all different tests for AIDS, and none of them accurately depict any HIV because they have not actually definitively isolated the HIV agents to even say it exists. It's a theory. And in Africa, a doctor literally, you walk in real sick and skinny, oh my God, you have AIDS. That's how they can diagnose you on the continent of Africa with having AIDS. So you've heard it, and it's not really about AIDS we're talking about tonight. But I want you to tell me what we're really talking about and why is this so relevant. And now put the picture in its full context for our listening audience, since we have the most sophisticated and most intelligent radio listening audience in the world here on One Horizon. I want to hear from you what you have to say about this. So without any further ado, I want to first thank you for sitting through that, brother, since I know there's a lot of discussion, but I want us to really think to be able to see the bigger picture of what we're dealing with. So I'm going to go now to the phone lines. Detroit.
Peace, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How you doing after all of that craziness we just went through?
I'm good. I was hoping you wasn't going to come to me first because I was in and out on some of that, but I did catch the majority of it. Definitely very important information. So what was your question exactly? Where do I think this is going? Or
no, there's a reason we're doing this program. There's a point to it. It's not just, we're not just doing a discussion about AIDS and the history and all that. There's something that should be like blowing up in our minds, making things very clear about the world we live in right now, the things that we're facing based on this discussion. What is the point in this discussion? That's the question.
Well, like I said, I missed some of it. What I think about when I think about everything that I've found out about the whole HIV thing is really the homosexual assault, because what they've done is take a disease that started off because of their lifestyle and then trying to promote it as a heterosexual disease. But especially over in Africa where, as you said, diagnosis is just like anything can diagnose you with AIDS, and they're trying to get people to stop having sex, be celibate, don't practice polygamy, all this kind of stuff. At the same time, they're over there homosexualizing everybody through, warfare and armies and all kinds of stuff. So it seems like just another way to homosexualize people and make heterosexual people, kind of on the fringes.
That's a very, very, and really technically that is definitely the answer. It's not the full context of what I want, what we're going to get, but that's a good thing. We have more people that have called up. So, but that's an excellent point that you make. So you're saying this is just another way of them promoting homosexuality with this whole AIDS thing.
Well, that and, killing off a lot of heterosexual black people as well by getting them to take the drugs. You know, it's multifaceted. It works in many different ways, but definitely that's one of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, that's excellent, outstanding. You got anything else for us on this?
Did you want me to tell my story about my experience at work today? Or you want me to say that?
Yeah, because I think that'll help people's minds go in the direction I want people to really be able to start putting the pieces together. Absolutely. Tell your story.
All right. Well, I've been working at a place that does like field trips and camps, day camps, and things like that. And since it's spring break, every week they have a new staff of people because a lot of times the teachers stay the same, but they have teenagers in the class kind of helping it out, so there'll be a smaller teacher-to-student ratio. So there'll be like one instructor and then 2 teen helpers in each class. So this week we got a new batch of teen helpers. And I was looking, when I walked in today, I just was looking at these 2 brothers and just got a weird vibe because one of them I couldn't tell if it was a feminine man or a masculine woman. They were like real fat, so you really couldn't tell by the body shape because they were just kind of obese and sloppy, pants sagging. So I didn't know if it was a dyke or if it was a dude. And upon further inspection, it was a dude. And I was just like, okay, that's weird. So I keep my eyes out during the day, and those are the only black male helpers there. And so I was like, that's kind of freaking me out. I was hoping that they put them with some of the older children. But I'm looking, and they have them with these 4- and 5-year-old children, which wouldn't be a problem except for they do things like take them to the bathroom. Usually they have to stand outside when children are in the bathroom, but, you know, if somebody that young is in the bathroom and they need help, of course they have to go help them. So they have these 2 fags, basically, over these young children who are too young to be able to really defend themselves and do anything. And even though most of the children were white, you know, it's natural for a black child to gravitate towards the only black faces they see because most of the staff is white. So I'm just sitting here thinking about the irony of having these 2 black faggots in a class where the black children are going to be gravitating towards them and then needing help in the bathroom and with clothing and things like that. It just freaked me out. It's like, you know, you can watch your children as much as you want to and say, well, my children won't get molested, but you never think, okay, dropping them off at a summer camp, you know, somebody may have the opportunity to touch them. They may be staffed with a bunch of faggots. Because I sent my daughter to the camp before and never thought about it. They were older, but, I mean, you never think just dropping somebody off for some kind of extracurricular activity that they could be victimized there.
Whew.
Using teenagers, not even adults, but teenagers.
This is really a problem. We are completely surrounded. Man.
Yeah, it's making me look at things a whole lot differently. I've always taken it seriously, and I've believed in the things you said, but for some reason the last couple of weeks I've just been seeing an intensified version of everything, and it's really starting to freak me out a little bit. It's a little much.
Because we all, those of us who are serious, we realize that we are under homosexual assault. We're literally a war is completely waging, and we've been intellectually preparing for it, but it hit us, and it's hitting us real time right now, and we realize that we're surrounded on all fronts, and that we have to really begin to stand up and figure out what we're going to do to counterattack, because it's no longer sufficient to just say, me and my family, we're against it. That's not acceptable because it's closing in on us all around us. We have to start forcing other people to pick positions, and we have to find a way to effectively resist what's happening.
Yeah, and whatever we do, we have to do it very quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, is that all you got for us, sis?
That's all we got.
Well, thank you for calling in. We love you. We definitely see you on the battlefield. You know what you're going to be doing next week for your program? Not tomorrow, but next week?
Yes, sir. We're going to be doing a program with Keith Young, the same guy from the Superheroes show. We're going to be talking about remembering yourself.
Okay. And you're not doing a program tomorrow, right?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. So we'll be doing Remembering Yourself. So stay tuned for that next week. And, sis, we'll see you on the battlefield.
All right. Peace.
Peace. Matter of fact, I would announce it now, but I haven't gotten it yet. So, she got a brand new book out, Conscious Entertaining, The Return of the Domestic Goddess. So, sisters, you want to get that because you want to be that domestic goddess to make your man say, I don't want to go out to the game with the guys or the baseball game. I'm going home because I got a domestic goddess. She make that house a home. Brothers and sisters, if you want to call in, 760-569-7676. That's 760-569-7676. Participation code 948-656#. That's 948-656#. 5851. You live on Warner Horizon. 5851. Going once. Going twice. All right, they're just listening. 2874. You're live on Warner Horizon. 2874. 2874. Going once, going twice. All right, they're just listening. Let me go to my brother. Brother Body Shots in the house. How you doing, soldier?
Hotel Warrior.
Hey, what it look like, man?
Man, I can't call it. Man, this is an outstanding program. Wow. I thought that I had studied this issue in depthly, but you definitely brought out some key issues that I had never looked at before. Wow. For a minute there, I came in late. You started sounding like you was a house squad. You ain't no house squad, are you, right?
No, sir. No, sir. I got a note on this house.
Hey, man, there's some vegetable warriors and house squatters out there that be saying AIDS ain't real and it's all made up in your mind and all that. So I was like, that. But to the point you were saying, the second phase of it, as it moved from the grid to, the hemophiliacs, I don't know if people are aware. A lot of people aren't. But I think in the 70s, the FDA had helped move hemophiliac drugs that were supposed to come to this country. It was produced by Bayer Aspirin. It's supposed to be like some drugs for hemophiliacs. But they found it had the HIV virus in it or something. So instead of destroying the drugs, they actually sold it to like parts of Asia and Europe. And I'm not sure if they did it in Africa or not. But, yeah, that was a big-time medical scandal. It was probably like the worst in the 20th century. They purposely, like, gave people the virus through drugs. Yeah.
Now, look, you said I was sounding like a water sprinkler. Now you sound like a water sprinkler. How about that? Ha!
Man, I do remember my first year in college, I took biology as my major. So that's when I really got into the study of it. And one article I'd read, this scientist, he's actually got murdered, like a home invasion type thing. But he was putting out information saying that the whole thing was a hoax. And even if it was true, the fact that you wearing a condom, if it was true that the diameter or the permeability of a condom is too big for the diameter of the HIV virus, meaning that even wearing a condom wouldn't work if it was actually true. He said basically it's like throwing a golf ball through a basketball net. It wouldn't even prevent it if that was the case. So, yeah, it's interesting, though, to see that here nobody told fags to stop being fags, but in Africa, actually, matter of fact, I got a book on traditional African cultures, and a lot of cultures in East Africa, it was considered almost like not homosexual, but you would get a yellow flag if you only had one wife. Like a man's status in his community was directly linked to how many wives he could have and he could support. So there's a lot of traditional African cultures where polygamy was like that was the order of the day. But now in modern day Africa, you don't see that. It's a very, very sharp decline. And the reason that was given in one of the books I have is because of the epidemic of AIDS. And now there's fewer and fewer cultures that's continuing the practice of polygamy.
Mm.
So it really has uprooted traditional African cultures.
And this is definitely true. And now let me ask you this, because you brought up the point, and it's funny. I was listening to you. I didn't know where you was going, so I didn't laugh when you said it. It was really funny. Traditionally, when I heard people talking about AIDS didn't exist and all that stuff, originally when I was young, I was actually, to be 100% honest, I was watching a lot of programs with the experts who were saying AIDS had more to do with drug use than it did anything sexually transmitted. This was back when it originally came out. But when you were hearing me say that, and not just me saying that, but do you believe that quote unquote HIV and AIDS exist? That's the first question.
Nah, I don't.
What do you think exists?
I think that the medicines that are given for these particular diseases or infections are what actually causes the illness.
So you think it's a 100% hoax?
That is, yes, that's what I think at the end of the day, after doing all of my independent research.
Okay, so you a water sprinkler too. You want to water, you Joan on me, but you one of these house squatters too, running around talking about AIDS is a hoax. So let me ask you this then: what are we trying to get from this conversation? We hear that there's some speculation as to what's going on with the AIDS. What is the discussion about? Because there's got to be a deeper meaning. Okay, the AIDS, but most of us don't have AIDS on this phone. So what is the relevant thing to us about the AIDS? How is this discussion relevant? Put it into a perspective that connects the dots.
Oh man, this is a rough one. I'm kind of discombobulated today. I know in the National Security Memorandum 200 that Henry Kissinger laid out like the different places on the map that they wanted to see global depopulation.
Come on.
So for us, I take a position that it's a military assault and it's an aggression on the black male, black female, the institution, the black family, black life. It's a direct assault. Yeah. And at the same time, it's propelling us into this homosexual, backwards, degenerate culture.
How is it propelling? How is it doing that?
Matter of fact, I was reading an article today because I was trying to prepare for this program. About.com has an article on women to women STDs or something like that. And basically, what the article was saying that it's a common misconception that homosexuals don't get homosexual women or lesbians don't get STDs. And another thing is that they don't go to the doctor to get tested for cancer and get pap smears and all this. So actually, it's more, cancer is more prevalent in lesbians than it is in heterosexuals. So the whole thing that we're saying here now is a false reality that we're living in, that heterosexuality is more unsafe than homosexuality, when the opposite is actually true.
That is true, and you definitely said some pieces. Both you and Lady Shabazz have said a few of the pieces. You got anything else you want to say? You want to wrap it up? Where are you with this?
No, I'm done. I want to get to. I want to hit some more dialogue. That's pretty much all I had to bring to the table.
Okay. Well, thank you. Excellent call. I'm glad you brought up the NSSM 200 because that's something I definitely wanted to bring up. And we're going to put all these pieces together to get a more full picture of what's going on. So, brother, we definitely thank you for calling in. Stay strong. And we're supposed to have your lecture ready this weekend. The people have been asking for it, so we're going to try to make sure we get it to them.
All right.
All right, brother.
Be before you.
Be before you. That's our brother Body Shot, Strong Warrior, 5032. You live on Warner Horizon.
Abiba Bahode, this is Baba Ung from Houston. We following up on the call. We down here listening to your program. We're loving it.
Yes, sir, brother. Good. Glad you could be able to tune in, and we appreciate you tuning in. What are your thoughts on this, brother? Calling in all the way from Houston. I know it's nice and sunny down there. Y'all need to send us some of that sunshine, my brother.
It's headed your way, but I've been studying this AIDS thing for a while because, you know, I, like you, thought I had AIDS at one time. You'd be scared to go to the doctor and all that because you've been listening to all the propaganda on the media. But after I started studying it, it really started to it became crystal clear what was going on. It didn't make any sense. First and foremost, and you may have said this, and I only caught half the first part of your program, but every disease, looking at this whole vaccination paradigm, they say that you have protection when you test positive for antibodies. So they give you a weakened portion of the, you know, smallpox virus or yellow fever, whatever, something that makes your body produce antibodies to the disease. So when your body produces antibodies, that means you're protected. All right? Fast forward. Get to this AIDS diabolical plan. It's flipped the script. Now, when you have the antibodies, you're not protected. Now you've got the full-blown disease. Now that puts the whole immunization theory in the trash right there.
It does.
So I listened to a lady, and I'm going to send you the link. It's on, I forget, she's got a web page. I think she's either Norwegian or Swedish, a Northern European lady. And she said the whole thing is a scam. It doesn't make any sense, and there's no such thing as AIDS. The antibodies that they're testing for have been in humanity since humanity has existed, and they exist far more prevalently in African black people because our genetic structure is the most broad. So therefore, we're going to test positive for it. But it means nothing, and it's nothing but a genocidal tool. This is her words. And I've heard, I've got a couple of clips from doctors on YouTube and the like discussing this dynamic. But the whole thing about the immunization and how antibodies, on one hand, show protection, but then with this magical drug, like the magical mulatto, it changes. It's different. It's not the same. So that's kind of what it is, huh?
I want you to back up because you said something, you went right past it, and you said something that was a time bomb. She said it's nothing but a genocidal tool. Now, if you're saying that, I'm assuming that you would agree with that. Can you explain how, so that our listening audience can understand in a very practical manner, how this is being used as a genocidal tool?
Well, you know, it goes back, I'm thinking back to slavery times when we were exploited to make money and to be genocidally destroyed. But with the AIDS thing, it's a chance for these people to make money off of us as well as cause us to die off, because if we're too afraid to have sex, then we're not going to procreate. Then when we do have sex, we have babies, naturally we're going to test positive for HIV because that's what the test for. It's no damage. It's just a genetic material that's in your body that they've isolated. But just because you can see it doesn't mean it's a problem, but they tell us it's a problem. Then through the small hat media, it's a problem. Everyone doesn't question the media. Now we're frightened, and we're running to take these drugs. We're not breastfeeding our babies, so they get weakened and they die off. The ladies take these drugs, the men take these drugs, we die off. The leaders, you know, they want to get aid for their countries, and unwittingly, they're killing off the populations of the government of their countries. So I see it as just a diabolical ploy for these small head-driven people to make money at our expense and continue to manipulate us mentally.
Brother, now you starting to click. It's all just about on all cylinders. That's right. So you're saying that it does a multitude of things. One, it stops us from having children, which is part of the eugenics program of global genocide of African people to prevent births. which would be a supplement to Margaret Sanger's Planned Parenthood. You saying that when we do, they're telling the women to stop breastfeeding so that if there was a disease that children would catch, they'll be much more susceptible to it because breastfeeding helps with the immunization of a human being. Oh, so you're saying that they're using the media to manipulate us, to get us to take drugs, to kill us, and you're saying this is a full program of genocide under the guise of this thing they call AIDS.
Right, and they're trying to tell us it's for our benefit, but as most things from these people, they speak with forked tongue. If they say one thing, you gotta look the exact opposite. Unfortunately, our people are so foolish. We believe whatever comes on the TV, that little one-eyed, I'm not going to use the word, that one-eyed box that confuses us. But I see it as a full genocidal program through by curtailing sex and also increasing infant mortality by removing the most precious thing that you could give a child, a woman's breast. And it's just really insidious, and it's just really diabolical. And the longer I live, a friend of mine, his mother was 93 years old, and he used to tell me about these people. She'd say, boy, you don't know these people. These people ain't from us. And the more I learn, the more I see these people are truly what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, the devil. But not the devil in the sense of this fairy running around with no spirit. No, these people are driven and so possessed by material gain and control that they're willing to destroy the whole planet in order to have what they want. But yeah, it's a genocidal plan to destroy black people by attaching us at the most fundamental level. Procreation, you mentioned Margaret Sanger, that's her plan, as well as increasing infant mortality. So those two things, lowering birth rates, and then when the births do come, increasing infant mortality. So it's really diabolical, and it's really saddening me and makes me want to go out and do something real violent right now, but I'm going to restrain myself.
And brother, when we started talking about doing this program, that's exactly how I was feeling. I said, when people start putting the pieces together and see what's really going on, it's going to make you really want to go out and really look at these Europeans and say, y'all time is really up. Not like no spiritual time is up, but like it really should be their time, because the stuff that they're doing to our people now is so insidious that I agree. I totally feel your spirit 100%. I think you did an excellent job of laying down the case.
One more thing, brother, because I was listening to your program from last week, and I was listening to a program by this guy named Dr. David Duke of Plan fame. And now, I don't know if you've been following David Duke lately or not, but I just listened to one of his programs because he was on another program I was listening to, so I just want to hear what he had to say. But what was interesting is that he was singling out the small hat as the biggest problem. And so I was thinking, okay, Southern Poverty Law Center, back in the back pocket of the, the Zionists, they're saying the white supremacists and so forth are beginning to be a problem. And here lately, there's been a couple of murders of district attorneys. I don't know if you heard about it or not, but down here up there by Dallas, they blasted a district attorney outside the courthouse. Then a week later, they blasted another district attorney and said there was this white Aryan Brotherhood or something. And I'm just wondering, is that a false flag thing to try and get people looking at the, white supremacists as a problem, and then once again trying to get the Negroes from the Django-type movies to get sicked on to the white supremacists because, we've been taught that these small hats are our friends, and to move that dynamic. So I was thinking about it. I know I'm taking the conversation a little bit further, a little bit different direction, but I see it as connected because it's all about manipulation and control with this media thing. But anyway, I just want to throw that out there.
Well, what you brought up is an excellent point. I'm going to tie it in. The whole the brilliance of the move by the small hats of putting Barack Hussein Obama in there is a few things. One, they want to take over the whole world. It's been their plan for some time, and no better way to do it than to seize the African continent by putting in a mulatto, half black-faced Negro, giving our people false hope, putting our people completely to sleep as they slaughter our people and commit genocide. But also there's another fundamental reason to put him there, foundational reason. Because they want someone that now that information and information age, the internet is available, that's how we're able to have this conversation that we're having now. That's how we can have so many people listening and getting this information, because we have an information highway that they can't control. I mean, it's not that the small hat, they're not all powerful. They can't control this flow of information. So since they know that the Anglo-Saxon is completely sick and tired of the Zionist control of America, and they know that they're armed and going to strike, what they did now is put Obama in there, similar to the Civil War, so that they can make the racist, white supremacist redneck, they can make them a racist boogeyman. And they can get black people hyped up to go take the weapons, to join the government in their efforts to seize the guns and the property and even the lives of the white supremacists for the small hats. And in exchange for that, we will get to be the middle managers in that process long enough for them to remove the threat, and then they will allow the whites then to be the enslavers and exterminators of black people, because the whites will be so resentful at the fact that the small hats that we fought for the small hats, that when the small hats then flip the whites back over onto black people, they would be willing to exterminate us. So the small hats, their intention is to get out of this thing completely clean. The only problem is that the revolutionary militant black people, not all of us, but many of us, are beginning to see the small hat. And the David Dukes of the world are beginning to see the small hat. And their worst fear is that one day we will get to the point where we will both sit down at the table and say, we're going to keep our guns, you keep your guns, but maybe as opposed to American citizens, quote unquote, being disarmed, maybe these foreign agents of foreign governments are the ones who should be disarmed and removed from positions of power. That's their worst fear. They were afraid of that with Marcus Garvey when he sat down with the Klan. They were afraid of that with Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad when he talked to the Klan. And the worst fear of the small hat is that the militant black masses and the militant white masses, not that we will come together, they like creating, because they know that would create a problem, but we'll have a symbiotic relationship, meaning we both have somebody we've identified as the enemy and both want to smack them in the mouth at the same time, and will not fight each other in that regard for a limited amount of time, in which case they will become the identified terrorists and the enemy to both groups, and they will have to fight both groups, and they could not possibly win if they had to do that.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that, because all through his little talk, Dr. David Duke, I don't know, he's a doctor of something. Anyway, he was saying that basically blacks, you know, he didn't want to mix with blacks, and, you know, we don't need to mix with them. He basically saying that, you know, the rednecks and the blacks could live together, or the blacks aren't really a problem. But the problem is the small hat with the filth coming out of Hollywood and the control of the banks and the control of media in general, and, you know, having the politicians in the back pockets in the military. He's basically hitting it right on with regards to small hat problem. And I know that these small hats are scared shitless, excuse my language, I'm sorry, about listening to him talk like that and not identifying black people, and programs such as yourself getting it out there. But unfortunately, we have so many people who just want to listen to the television and believe the foolishness on there without any critical thought. Not say don't watch. I don't say don't watch TV, even though I don't watch much. But you got to look at it with a jaundiced eye, and if you don't question it and you just let it go into your mind, you get brainwashed by these small hats and you follow that foolishness. So hats off to you, brother, and no pun intended. And I will let you go forward on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. We definitely appreciate the call, and we'll see you on the battlefield.
All right.
Yeah, that's a new one. You know, you got crack in the trunk, you got hats off, because we want to see these hats off. I like that. All right, 9763, you live on War on the Horizon.
BB48.
BB48, my brother.
What's going on, brother? So I'm listening to the program, and it sounded real good. I'm glad to hear, though, that a couple more brothers been scared about the fake AIDS test before, other than just me. Because Because I was one of them. I got a call one time in college. I was a sophomore, matter of fact. I was a sophomore. Went to Salem State University and got a call from the clinic. Said, listen, your name on a list of people who might got this disease. I said, what? They said, listen, we'll come pick you up to come take the test. So, little gay-looking cracker come down to the school, pick me up. He take me down, we give blood. Me and my man, we both on the list. We giving blood and everything. And, we sweating. I go back home, they like, look, it's going to be like, it's already Friday. We got to take the weekend. We got to take the weekend off. And they like, listen, we can give you the test we can give you the results on Tuesday. Just give us a call. Man, all weekend I was studying. I'm studying on it. Studying. I said, that shit fake. Like the brother said, after you start looking, this is 1996. In 96, the information was online that, listen, this is a hoax. So I started thinking it was a hoax. And that's exactly what I went with. I ain't go back for another test to 2001. Did I take another test? I ain't believe in it from that point on. I was like, man, this.
So wait a minute. You never got the results of that first test?
No, I never. I didn't. After I read online the information, because I think Brother Body Shop was talking about how online the information was that even if you wear a rubber, right, if the disease exists, that just like he said, it's just like throwing golf balls into a basketball hoop, right? So I'm saying to myself, now listen, if you're going to get it no matter what, then I don't believe in no disease that no matter what you do, you can't. Ain't no mess like this real. You can't. It's like there was no way around this disease. That's what it seemed like. Everything they said that you're going to get it no matter what. And I, just over that weekend, I was like, man, I'm not going back. I don't believe in this mess. I ain't going to believe in it. And, I ain't believed in it since. But to sum it all up, the thing I was thinking about when I'm listening to all the brothers, to sum it up, I think it's something like Samuel L. Jackson had a movie called POS 51, or Formula 51, where it was about the power of suggestion. He had made a drug that it looked like it was a whole bunch of different, chemically, it looked like a whole lot of different drugs put together. But when you put them all together, it really didn't do nothing more than what they told you it was going to do. And after hearing everybody online, that's what I think they did. They got such a manipulation plan. Besides the fact that they want to murder us and they're using the drugs. When you go in there, you take the AZT, it's actually killing you off. But the media is so powerful, but that they play a mind trick on us, that they make us believe something so much that, like you said, I just talked to a brother living across the street from me. He said he was happy when he went into the doctor's office. He said when he went in there after he left, he looked it like he wanted to cry. He said, man, he telling me my cholesterol messed up. I got diabetes. And, man, I can't eat this. And, oh, man, I don't know what to do. And I'm looking at him. I said, man, brother, he said, you was feeling good before you went in? Yeah, I was feeling good. Now this is how you feel? Yeah. I said, man, I don't think you should go back to that doctor no more. I don't believe in that stuff no more. I think that's our number one problem. That's our number one problem, I think it is, Irritated Genie, is that we just believe in all this crack of nonsense, that everything he put out, everything that the media put out, every time something come across the CBS line, we suck it in, and it been going. But I'll tell you, in New Haven, I live in New Haven, Connecticut, we used to have what they call like the highest AIDS population. We had a high school at one time that they said the senior class, like 80% of the senior class was HIV positive. But now you look around the city, don't nobody got AIDS no more. People still having sex. People just stop believing. The people in the neighborhood just stop believing. They like, AIDS? Man, AIDS ain't real. It ain't even like it's even not even real. It's just ain't even a passing thought in their mind. And you can get no AIDS no more.
And let me jump in here because I want to say something, but I want to get to something you said because you hit a critical point, and I want to get to that. But I do want to say, just to be clear, I'm not saying to brothers and sisters out there, we're not trying to get the impression that there are no such thing as sexually transmitted diseases. There are.
You're sure did.
And we're not trying to say there are no conditions that are bad and that all Western medicine is bad. I'm not saying that either. What we are saying, though, and this, I'm going to go right to the point. Really, if you want to, and brother, you really hit a point that I don't know if people caught that. I want you to think about this real carefully. I know you've already thought about it. I want you to think about this, though. One, had you gone when you was in school and said, yeah, I have, and they said, yeah, you have HIV, you would have believed it, thought you was dying, and taking those drugs, and you would be dead today. That's one. So I want people to hear this now. One, if he had gone there and they had told him he was HIV positive, the brother that we're talking to right now, we wouldn't be talking to him. We wouldn't be talking to any family, children that he's had. We wouldn't be talking to, if he has a wife, he wouldn't, all of that would have been gone. But there's a second piece that makes it, really brings my point home. Correct me, because I'm going to say this wrong on purpose, and I want you to correct me. Yeah, the brother went to the doctor and got tested, and they said he had HIV. Is that what happened, brother? No, that's not what happened. How did you, quote unquote, find out that you might have HIV?
They called me.
Okay. How did they call you? What did they do to call you?
What did they do? They tested somebody else.
Yeah. They found some woman.
Yup, found a woman who put a whole list together of people's names.
Told her to make a list of black men that you done slept with.
Yeah, yup, exactly. Make a list of the people that you slept with, and we gonna call all them up. And I'm talking about, yo, yeah, I didn't even really think about how they,
So I want you to just understand what I'm saying here. If you assume that it is legitimate what they're saying, which, again, we're not hearing black people that are saying it's not true. The whites are saying there's nothing that exists, but they're saying that what they're telling us is bogus. But if you listen to that, to the statement, they literally go out. How did they diagnose you with HIV? Just like they did in Africa. They told somebody who they say got HIV, who said they have sex with you.
And I had it. And if I believed them, I would have had it. You know, when you saying that, when it happened, you going through, I knew that's how, right then and there, I was just thinking about all the women, I'm like, hold up, man. Hold up, man. I'm calling Dave. I'm calling numbers, Look, don't let me find out that you got the big one. But for real. But ain't none of them dead. I'm talking about the ones that I knew that I call right now today. I could call them. You know what I mean? I can remember that time because that was like something that was, I'm talking about for about 4 days from that Friday to that Monday, I just was racking my brain looking at all the information that I could about this. And, calling, you're making calls and all that. And I can remember, and all of them still alive. So if they had it, I don't know, they must have that Magic Johnson age, financial age. Must have financial age or something, because I swear I don't think that, ain't none of them dead. So,
and I'm glad you brought that up, because that the piece about how they find out who has AIDS is very important, because who they believe has HIV, because it wasn't like you went in there and got a test and it came back positive. Before you went in there, you had already been identified as somebody who was a suspect, which means, depending on what they tell you, depends on, are you going to start taking drugs, which are chemotherapy, for a disease you may or may not have.
Yup.
Well, you got anything else, brother?
Nah, brother. I'm glad you said that. I got some things to think about right now. I'm glad I'm listening to the program of BB Fahodier.
BB Fahodier, my brother. BB Fahodier. Yeah, see, that was a very important call, because it's real talk. We act like this thing, it hit us. I swear to God, I'm not being funny when I tell you, when I was in high school, I had allergies, but I didn't know what allergies was, so I thought I had AIDS, because that was the big thing that was out there. and I didn't have AIDS. But if I had gone there and they had told me I had AIDS, I would have believed them. And whatever medication they would have given me, I would have taken, and I'd be dead today. My brother Bookman in the house. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Black Power, brother. How you doing tonight?
Black Power, how you doing?
All right, doing good, doing good. The HIV/AIDS subject. I do want to say the conditions exist, but the name was just renamed with HIV/AIDS. And when you first started off the program, you know, through a man by the name of Boyd Graves, Dr. Boyd Graves, and also Behold the Pale Horse by William Cooper, was how I really got my information on a lot of the AIDS thing. And actually, when I was in college, I had wrote a paper on it.
And let me do this, bro. I know you driving and working. Is there any way you can cut down the feedback in the background?
Not too much,
Okay, well, if you can make the comment kind of quick, because it's kind of disruptive, but we definitely want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah. But, you know, they've been starting with the HIV virus to where back in 1941, they actually took it to Guinea, West Africa, New Guinea, West Africa, and it was like a sheep form before that, and they started experimenting on people.
I'm sorry, but let me do this. We're not going to even use this, but it's a little too much in the background. If you're able to get to a place where you can make the comment without the feedback in the background, that'll be good, but it's a little too much for the radio right now.
What about now?
Yeah, it's still a lot.
Okay, yeah. Well, when you look at the AIDS virus, it does tie in with MSSR 200. That was around the same time that they had discovered what was called Project 1972. And Project 1972, that's when they decided, you know, that HIV/AIDS virus would be something that they could use in population control. To where in 1975, they actually bought out 15,000 gallons of polio vaccine to Africa, and said they were going to help the people with the, you know, get the polio vaccines. Ended up giving them HIV/AIDS, which explains why, you know, so many cases of AIDS out in Africa. And they, you know, use the media to make this thing like a black man and black woman disease here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but you know, it's
let me do this, brother. I definitely appreciate the call. We still got the feedback though, so I want to go to the next caller. But thank you for calling with that good information, my brother.
Sure enough, Black Power.
Brother's at the workplace, so he got to do the do. But he wanted to come in and get it in. My brother, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, brother. Listen, I didn't get a chance to hear your monologue, but based on what I heard as I called in, it sounds to me that you're talking about the origin of AIDS. I think I heard you mention that last week.
We're not really talking about the origin of AIDS, but we did mention it. What we're trying to find out, we discussed it and talked about the development of this concept of AIDS, and we were asking what is the relevance to the wars that we're fighting today. Why is this discussion of AIDS relevant with the breakdown that we gave there?
Well, based on what you just asked right now, in relevance to what the work that War on the Horizon does, and I'm not on the inside, I don't know much about it, but what you share with us in the public,
yes, absolutely.
It seems to me that this acquired immunity deficiency syndrome is it could be man-made and experimented on segments of the population that they want to control. There was an online article made by this Canaanite doctor called Dr. Strecker. It was the Strecker Memorandum. And this is a Canaanite, or European, a Caucasian, talking about other scientists who went out to a meeting that they go to every year with the World Health Organization and organizations in Italy that talk about the shrinking resources of the world and how the population has to be controlled and or reduced. And then simultaneously in the late 70s, early 80s, I mean, I'm a kid, and you hear in the news how, you know, homosexuals are coming down with this disease in San Francisco and the Village in New York, and how this rhesus monkey in Central Africa is people, I don't know, they just leave it out there like what? People are having sex with the monkeys or what? What is this? Because it was sexually transmitted, supposedly. But also, they're in Africa giving hepatitis B vaccinations. So my common sense tells me that they've experimented on particularly our race. What was it, 1932, 1972, or 76 with the Tuskegee experiment? And controlling the pregnancies of black women if they are on assistance in South and North Carolina as recently as a couple of years ago. This experimenting with human beings, this experiments with people and segments of the population that they want to control has been going on for a long time. So it seems to me that they help you to acquire an immunity deficiency by way of the vaccines that they give you. It's all about annihilating people and controlling. Hey, they cannot genetically live past a certain time as they continue to have sex with one another. We have to have sex with them to prolong their existence. So it seems to me that these devils say if they can't have it for themselves or for an extended a long period of time, that they'll kill everybody and everything with it. I see it as a population control mechanism.
Absolutely, brother. And like always, you synthesize and hit things right on the nail on the head. You got anything you want to wrap up with, or is that pretty much your synopsis?
That's my synopsis on your subject tonight, brother. Excellent program. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you for coming on, brother. As always, the brother don't take long, but he always puts it right into the perfect context. Let me give my synopsis, and I think everybody did an excellent job of explaining it. This is what we have to do, and I want everybody to do this. There's a book called The Genocide Files. It's difficult to get. It's by Xavier Arnold. He calls it a fiction book, but it's nothing fiction about it whatsoever. One or two little issues you have here or there, but it's an absolutely positively outstanding book. Probably one of the best books ever written, really. And it's a novel, but it deals with everything in it is real. I mean, for the most part. It's told in a story, but it's a very critical book because what we are looking at with the AIDS virus is the pretext through which whites, really the small hats, but whites in general, and particularly the Zionists, can come in to the black community and commit open, pure genocide. Here's the pretext. In the 1970s, NSSM, Henry Kissinger, we have to have global depopulation, like our brother just said. So they say, okay, we're going to depopulate, we're going to kill the majority of African people, we're going to kill the majority of these other groups, but particularly we're looking at our own thing. They're going to kill the majority of African people. So there were a few things that they wanted to do. One, they wanted to use disease as a mechanism, biological warfare to kill black people. They wanted to use poverty to kill black people. They wanted to use violence to kill black people. They wanted to use prevention of births to kill black people. And they wanted to use what they classified as alternative lifestyle, homosexual lifestyle, pedophilic lifestyle, things that destroy families to destroy African people. So when these so-called homosexuals they were already looking for agents. They were already looking for agents, biological agents that could destroy or attack the immune system to kill people. That's just part of the biological warfare tactic. That's something they've been doing for years, like what they did with the Native Americans. They came in, Pontiac was about to win the war against against the British and expel them and kill the ones they wouldn't leave. And General Amherst said, hey, why don't we put smallpox in the blankets? Biological agent got in, killed the population. They won the war, not by traditional military means, but through biological warfare means. They've been doing it forever. And they were looking for an agent that could do that. But when the so-called homosexuals began to die because of this disease, what they saw was that the combination of drug use, homosexual misbehavior, which involves drug use, immoral behavior, licentious sexuality, dangerous sexuality in the passing of diseases, and stress, heavy related stress on the body. They looked at this and said, this is a formula for destruction of a race of people, in addition to the other things that we're going to do. So part So the strategy works like it's an international strategy to destroy African people. Okay, how do you do it here? Well, when you're looking at gay-related infectious diseases and how they can kill a population, what are the key ingredients? Homosexual misbehavior, over-the-top sexuality, drug use, and stress on the body. So they said, through their music, we are going to promote drug use, which is why they start bringing the drugs in, deep into the community. Crack, heroin, and they bring in this drug dope deep into the community for the drugs to now hit the system, part of grid. And the color purple and all this homosexual movies being promoted, because you got to have these combination of factors, and any one of them can kill the person. Even if it doesn't, any one of them can destroy it. So stress, so they're going to create joblessness, which creates massive stress. The drug use, children that don't have families, it's a substantial amount of stress. They're going to create violent communities with trash and things of that nature. They create a stress-filled environment with music that talks about killing and selling drugs, and anybody that's ever sold drugs or been around people who sold drugs, they will tell you the life is the most stressful life you can possibly live. And it surrounds drugs, and licentious sexuality, drugs, sleeping with everybody and doing everything like that, and tremendous amounts of stress. So they say, okay, in the music, we will begin to promote all of the things that grid does. But then we're going to take it even a higher level. Well, in Africa, on the African continent, what combination of these things can we do? Well, initially, the homosexual part wasn't going to really work that much, except for in South Africa, because that's the only place they had the power to really enforce homosexuality on a large level. So then what can they do? They don't need the homosexuality part. They'll just use for the slaughter of African people on the African continent, they'll use the drug use and the stress related to poor environment. So you got bad diet, you got a poor environment, which creates stress on the body. You don't have enough water. You don't have enough food to be healthy. You don't have enough jobs and things to motivate a person. So the body is already stressed based on its circumstances. And now they come in and say, we will give you a drug that you can take. So now they're doping up massive people, murdering substantial amounts of people. Also, to the brother's point, now they are testing, not AIDS. This is where we get confused. It wasn't that they was testing AIDS, because AIDS is a set of circumstances. They wasn't testing AIDS in Africa per se. They were taking different agents that they could shoot into people's bodies to see what the impact would be. Many of them were probably agents that attack the immune system. But whatever the case may be, whatever they're giving our people, we didn't oversee these shots and what were in them. And what we noticed is that in the regions where they gave those massive polio shots, millions of African people died in those same regions right in the period, decades following those. So what happened? They gave them something that killed them. It don't have to be AIDS. AIDS is the process of creating gay-related infectious diseases that if it's not gay-related, it can even be poverty-related. So what we're talking about is a genocidal construct. It doesn't, and remember, in Africa, it's not about having a disease. You have poor water, and you have poor systems of life in certain regions. Use that to tell people they're going to die, then give them drugs that will kill them, and then you kill them in a massive way. You make them so afraid that they're going to die, and then on top of that, to supplement it, the genocidal process, you tell them if they have sex, they're going to die because of this disease. So now the men don't want to have sex with the women because, remember, your ultimate goal as the whites is to slaughter the population. So the ultimate goal is to slaughter the population, and you slaughter the population by doing what? Telling men and women not to have sex with one another, and then creating wars, which again creates the stress, the drugs, and the murder. But now, bring it back home, right here where we are today. Why are we seeing what we're seeing today in terms of this massive homosexuality of our youth? What we're seeing is grid. Why? Because what they realize is that without them doing anything, that the death style of homosexuality is a death style that involves drug use and can easily, in and of itself, lead to the destruction of a group. So they just studied it as a military tactic and realized if we can promote this kind of behavior in the community, this will kill people. It will kill them through disease. It will kill them through drug use. It will kill them through the stress of the body. It will kill them through destroying family. It will kill them in every multitude of type of manner that you can imagine. So what we are looking at today with the promotion of homosexuality amongst our children, with the hip-hop telling them to do dope and every one of them is smoking drugs, is popping pills, what they are participating in is government-sponsored GRID, gay-related infectious disease. The disease is the death style, not any one disease that's communicated from one boy to one girl or one girl to one boy or one girl to a girl. That's not what AIDS or GRID is. It is a lifestyle which encompasses drug use, sexual backwardness, stress on the body, and stress on the mind that destroys the individual, destroys their ability to operate in a healthy environment, and essentially prevents births from being occurring within the group. This is what they are doing. They saw GRID originally at the same time that they were trying to create vaccines that actually attack the immunity of people. So now what we have, now they put the two together. I want you to see how brilliant this plan is. So now, on the one hand, they're promoting GRID, gay-related infectious diseases, which is, don't think of it as a disease. It is the death style, the misbehavior of homosexuality, which with the drug use and the stress on the body and the sexual licentiousness creates death and disease in a group of people. It kills them and prevents births. So that's one thing. On the other hand, they have a whole nother thing that they have. Because at the same time they're doing that and they're promoting GRID, they also are on the other side of the equation. Gosh, I lost my train of thought. Hold on for a second. It's really, really, really important. This is really important. They're promoting the GRID on that side. And then on the other side of the equation, I don't want to miss this piece. I didn't write this down, man. But it's critical to what we're talking about. So we have the gay-related infectious diseases. Well, let me just add this other piece, and hopefully this piece will... So you got the gay-related infectious diseases on this side, and the death style of homosexuality. But then on this side, things that we have always had. A person catches a flu any time in their life, and they get rid of it. Why? Because the biology of the person kills, your immune system kills it. Now they are getting average, everyday people. Instead of going to Africa and injecting hundreds of millions of Africans with shots that do something to their immunity, which if they know what they're putting into you, then they also know what else they can give you through food or medicine or water at a later time that can spark and be a catalyst for something that they put in you. So now they are getting people to allow them to inject them with stuff we have no idea what it is. So now you're killing people on multiple levels. You're injecting people just like they did in Africa. Remember, in Africa, they injected them with the polio vaccines, and then they died decades later. I mean, millions of black people, or however many died. Let me not say millions, because sometimes they lie about the numbers. Substantial numbers of black people died, though. And some people say it was AIDS. We don't know what it was, but we know that in the same region where they gave those brothers and sisters those shots, a lot of people came out with diseases and end up dying. Now they're giving people shots, and people have no idea what these things are going to do and what these shots are doing to them. And they're giving them shots for standard things that people have had from the beginning of time that their natural body immunity would get rid of. So you have I want you to see the genocide here. You have the gay-related infectious diseases, which is the death style of homosexuality that's been poured through the music, on television, through adoption, taking our babies and recruiting them into this stuff. It's a full-scale war. The sisters said they in there as the teachers and the youth leaders, and in the churches, and then the Eddie Longs are getting paid to do this. So you have a whole GRID coming through the grid of the African world community, particularly here in America, and they're trying to push it on the African continent. Then you have these vaccinations, which are some insidious form of injecting black people with some kind of infectious disease or a catalyst, an agent for a disease that they can later activate through some means. And so they're telling everybody, you got to get your flu shot. And so now it is, and then if you add to that, encouraging black men to date outside of their race, the ones that are not on grid and the ones that are not taking these shots, then they want you with a white female, not a black woman. And black woman, the same thing. They want you with a white male, not a black male or black man. And what you have is a full and complete system of genocide all around you, every day, all day. From your food, to the shots that you're taking, to the medication that we're taking, to the homosexual misbehavior that's in our community, to the music that we're listening that's promoting all of those very same things, to the integration that's being promoted. What we are seeing is a full context of a war and a genocidal war that's being waged against our people right in front of our eyes. And under the guise of just this idea of this concept of fighting AIDS, that is how they intellectually are able to walk homosexuals into our midst and teach our children in schools. If you pay close attention, it is the fighting AIDS argument that gets them the right to talk about sexuality to children, because you cannot promote grid unless you can promote sex. In other words, you can't promote homosexuality without promoting sex, because that's what it is, sexuality. Well, how can you talk to children about sex unless you're a pedophile? You don't. Except that through the guise of we're trying to prevent AIDS and save people from getting AIDS. Now that is the caveat. That is the linchpin. That is the springboard for them to go into a school and talk to a 5-year-old, like our brother called last week, a 5-year-old child, and promote homosexuality, GRID, gay-related infectious disease. That's how they can promote it, through the guise of trying to prevent AIDS. What it is an objective to promote homosexual behavior or the death style, which is connected with drug use, which, whether it's the shots we're getting for the flu or the dope and the scissor and the pill popping and the ecstasies and the crack and the dope and the heroin that the brothers and sisters are doing, no matter what it is constant drug use going into our body. And then you have the sexuality that's being promoted in our community in a negative light, in a negative fashion, which is anti-sexual behavior, which is not the kind of behavior that produces families. And now we have an international war against the basic fundamental sexual sanity and family structure of African people. And we allow this open assault on our people because we don't understand that AIDS, even by their own definition, is not a disease. AIDS does not exist. You do not die of AIDS. People die of diseases. They classify people who die of certain diseases as having died of AIDS. What people do die of is GRID, gay-related infectious diseases, meaning through that death style of homosexuality and all the stuff that they're doing to their bodies, they destroy their immune system, which is why they're promoting homosexuality in our prisons, which is why they're promoting homosexuality to our children, which is why they're promoting homosexuality around the world, because they have seen that death style kills black populations. So, brothers and sisters, I hope that was some clarity. I hope I didn't create more confusion than I did some clarity, but I hope that there was some clarity created in this discussion, and I hope you understand what you just heard. Essentially, brothers and sisters, what we are looking at is a very well-orchestrated, genocidal, open genocidal program against African life. You walk down the street, you can go get you a flu shot, you can go to a Planned Parenthood place and get you an abortion, you can go find the nearest gay club. You can get some alcohol. You can get some dope. But you can't get a job. And if that don't create the kind of stress that can lead to financial issues, that can destroy a family, I don't know what will. So with that said, brothers and sisters, I'm glad you tuned in. I hope this has been a useful program. I hope that it's been valuable to you. I hope that you can see that we're not really talking conspiracies here. These are all things, whether you agree with the fullness of the picture or not, this is all easily verified information because it's right in front of our face every day. With that said, brothers and sisters, thank you for tuning in. I know we said some things that may have disturbed some people, but hey, we didn't come here to be your friend. We came here to save you. We love you, and we'll see you on the battlefield. War on the horizon. You gotta love it.
Making good use of his natural death detector, the flesh-eating carnivore circles above 3/4 of a dead carcass, awaiting his demise. Being only 1/4 of a living being, he gasps his last breath. He dies. That caucasoid vulture swoops in to pick the legs, the flesh, the arms, the chest. With his beak blood-stained, he now rests, only in anticipation of his next feast. In the American ghettos, the horror lies, horror. Sweltering temperatures by day, frigid temperatures by night. Innocent prey die, packs of mighty wolves die. Even those who are hunters fall prey to a greater predator. Therefore, the predators themselves would eventually die in this vicious cycle of life. Inhumane conditions of hopelessness, poverty, unemployment, thoughts of incarceration, extracting the very breath from those who dare to breathe. Infiltrating my young with mind control. Pseudo-heroes, Christopher Columbus, Abraham Lincoln, saving the slave souls. Birds are prematurely thrust from the nest because Papa Bird has become a distant memory and Mama Bird desperately searches for a substitute. Above circles that caucasoid vulture. Wings spanned over 400 years wide. Waiting on sides. Homicide, suicide, organized genocide. These crackers don't care. Nigga just die. Carnivorous carnivores, flesh whores, looking for mine, looking for yours. Men not being fathers anymore, children growing up poor, women forced to be money whores. Caucasoid vultures soar over black divided households, purposely miseducated Negroes, black brats and sorrows, upper towns with cold souls. Good white folks gave me mine, you go get yours. These caucasoid vultures got no soul, loving the taste of bloody flesh, there will be no ritual. Only death and the bleed. By the death that we give, these caucasoids live. By the death that we have been trained to voluntarily give, these caucasoids live. My people, we must cease to merely exist and begin to live, so that those caucasoids might cease to live.
The vultures are watching, waiting for the babies to die. Hovering, stalking, smothering, talking, while we're wondering why the vultures are watching, waiting for the babies to die. They're eagerly awaiting, because they're thirsty for blood. A culture capable of love, they shove rifles in our babies' arms and drop them off in harm's way. Today in 2007, the vultures are watching, waiting for the babies to die. They're eagerly